My opinion, they did not set fire to this place. No. This is the owner right here, Dan Dias. He's a local attorney down there in Natchitoches, Louisiana. You know, this is my area. We used to go where I live down about an hour outside of the city, down to Natchitoches to the lights. You can go up and people hung out in the whole 9 yards. But the history is racist. Everything about this place screams racism. Dan pretty much said he invested everything he had into this, and now it's a total loss. Now, yes, he may have insurance, but y'all got to remember, insurance. Sometimes insurance companies don't want to pay you now. You know, he probably tried to rebuild, but not the way he had it. So this is right in line with everybody else. Now, yes, Dan did say that he is not racist. Him and his wife had nothing to do with slavery, and you know they're not in a left-wing radical anything, and they don't do, but they also don't want to dwell in the past.
And look, y'all already know on this channel I have to always say it, we hold racist institutions accountable, because if we don't, who will? But before I start this video, if you don't like black people, black issues, black talk, I don't give a damn. Get to stepping. And this article is by Hindustan Times. It was published May 23rd, 2025. That was yesterday. Who is Dan Dias, the owner of Nottoway Plantation in Louisiana? The Nottoway Plantation House, an essential element of Louisiana's history, went up in flames 2 a.m. on Thursday, May 15th, when staff at the building reported saying smoke coming up from the south wing. Dan Dias, the current owner of the building, has expressed his devastation at the event and uncertain about the possibility of restoration. We're very devastated. We're upset. We're sad, said Dias on Friday. We put a lot of time, effort, and money to developing this property. This was my dream that has now been dashed. Depending upon the extent of the damage revealed by the fire department report, Dias is expected to take decision on whether he will be restoring the property. Make that make sense. And before we get into anything, this is Dan Dias and his wife. These people have a whole family law firm. He's an attorney and she's a judge in Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. And if you know, you know. So you telling me in 2025, an attorney and a judge can own a plantation, and you got people walking around here telling you that slavery is over. You got people telling you that racism is over. Make it make sense. But before I go off on Winnie the Pooh and Fiona, let's have a quick history lesson, because these people love hiding our history. They love lying about our history. But me, I love calling out that shit. Run the tape.
Largest plantation homes in the U.S. caught on fire. Destiny Beasley spoke with an historian about how the destruction of Nottoway Plantation can lead to deeper conversations about its history.
What was once one of the largest antebellum homes in the South now lies in ruins. It was built in 1859 and owned by John Randolph.
Initially, he got into cotton manufacturing, but then he decided that he could make more money as a sugarcane plantation owner, which he did.
Professor Albert Samuels says owning a sugarcane plantation along the Mississippi River symbolizes immense wealth.
He was really in the top echelon of slaveholders. He was one of the richest men in the South, if not the United States.
But for enslaved people, working the sugarcane fields was the most labor-intensive.
Oftentimes, these enslaved people had the lowest life expectancy. So to be sold down the river was like a death sentence.
Samuel says enslaved Africans living on plantations were treated as property. He says homes like Nottoway were built by enslaved people, and plantation owners' wealth was built on their backs. To maintain wealth, Samuel says cruel and inhumane acts were performed.
It required a level of brutality and oppression to hold people down, even to the point where they were even willing to distort Christianity itself to justify the lifestyles that they had come accustomed to.
Samuel says for many people, watching the plantation home burn down symbolizes oppression going up in flames. He says before the fire, the legacy of slavery still lingered in Iberville Parish.
Here we are, 160 years removed from the end of the Civil War. And this parish, you know what? Its economy, in some ways, is still tied to an institution that's a vestige of slavery.
In Nottoway's transformation to operate as a resort, leaves too much room to romanticize the past, glossing over the harsh reality of life on Nottoway.
To market these places as places to hold your weddings or places to have a vacation.
So wait, if Winnie the Pooh and Fiona knew all this history, if they knew our ancestors went through all this stuff, they knew all this about this plantation before they bought it and they still purchased it. So who you think as a judge, as an attorney, who you think they send into prison more? Check this out. In Louisiana, including Natchitoches, black people are disproportionately incarcerated compared to the representation in the general population. While the state's population is roughly 62% white and 33% black, the incarcerated population is significantly different, with black inmates making up a larger share. Specifically, black people are incarcerated at a rate nearly 4 times higher than white people in Louisiana. Make that make sense? So I decided to do an undercover investigation because you have to realize these people don't care about our history. They don't give a damn about our ancestors, about our history. All they care about is money and power. So I went to their website and lo and behold, as I scrolled down, I saw the tab said history. It was way at the bottom in small words. Check this out. The oaks, Nottoway's grounds feature 16 majestic oak trees spread across the 31-acre property. The oldest tree on the property is estimated to be 162 years old, the same age as the mansion itself. In 2015, 11 of the 16 trees were registered with the Live Oak Society of the Louisiana Garden Club Federation, Inc. Each of the 11 trees were named after the Randolph children and can be identified on the grounds by the plaque at the base of each of the trees. Listed below are the facts on these historic trees. Enjoy walking our property and see if you can find them all. Make that make sense. So I wonder if each plaque say how many of our ancestors was hung from those trees. I bet you they'll never say that. And they have the audacity. They got one tree that's 162 years old. Imagine how many of our ancestors was hung from that oak tree. And to have the audacity, the original slave owner, to name those trees after your kids, make that make sense. And here come Dan Dias and his wife to make money from our ancestors. How you make money from trees where our ancestors was hung from and you don't say nothing about it? But look at them now. Look at that plantation now. Look at that fire now. I told y'all they didn't do this fire by themselves. They didn't do it on purpose because these people were making money. Why would they burn down a plantation? Why would they burn down something that's been there for over 150 years? Because once you burn it up, it has no value because all the value was in the past. So when they say you live in the past, no, they live in the past. But guess what? It's more. And before this video, I had to really calm down. I had to really calm my nerves because sometimes, hold on, let me put this down. Sometimes I really have to calm down before I do these type of videos because the stuff these people do, the audacity these people have. These people was calling these cottages. These are not a cottage. These are slave quarters. You can call them slave cabins, whatever you want to call it, but it's not a cottage. But they called it a cottage so they can they can list it on Airbnb. And guess what Airbnb did? Airbnb allowed them to list a plantation on their website. That's why I don't rock, bro. Any company that supports plantation, I don't rock with them. I don't rock with Airbnb. I'd rather get a hotel. Forget all that shit. How you go list a plantation on your website, knowing what our ancestors go through? That's why I have to make these videos. But check this out because this the cold part. And first, we have Creole Cottage Queen at $159 a night. Second, we have Carriage House Queen at $149 a night. And third, we have Cypress King at $189 a night. Make that make sense. And that's only a few that I saw on the Airbnb app. I told you, bro, these people are cold and they heartless. They have no souls. Imagine telling your family members you go and stay on a plantation for $200 a night. Make that make sense. And it's actually people that's doing it. Y'all probably have friends, people y'all work with that went on vacation. Imagine telling somebody you went on vacation and you stayed on a plantation. Make that make sense. But I told y'all earlier, these people didn't set their plantation on fire. Why would they? They was making so much money. The husband, Dan Dias, this dude is an attorney. His wife been a judge since 2014. So why would they burn up their own property because the insurance company, it ain't promised that you go get a lot of money. And you all know how it go in real life. Something can happen with your home. A hurricane can come. If you grew up in the South and you grew up around hurricanes, you already know how dirty these insurance companies is, especially in 2025. They don't give a damn about nobody. But the reason why I say they was making money, because look, they was giving plantation tours. Plantation tours 7 days a week, even on Sundays. These people ain't play about their money. Not even that. They was hosting weddings. And imagine, we know it's burnt up now. We know it ain't shit now. But imagine this summer, this spring, this fall, how many weddings they was going to give. How much money. Because they can tell us all day that they made $2.7 million a year. One thing I learned about racist Caucasian people, and probably not even the racist ones, they never go tell you what they really made. They never go put online what they really made. So it'll say 2.7, but it probably was 8.7, 9.7. Tell me I'm lying. I told y'all these people cold. They was doing tours, weddings, events. Memorial weekend coming up. What else you got? You got the restaurant and the bar. You got the Airbnbs. I can go on and on. I told y'all the game is cold with these people. And look, for this part, I really have to calm down because I'm always telling y'all sometimes you have to sit back, shut up, and use your common sense. Winnie the Pooh and Fiona did not get their plantation, did not purchase that plantation to teach people history, to teach you about the past, none of that stuff. All they care about, the only reason why they purchased that plantation to do the same thing their ancestors did was to get rich off the backs of black people and then act like they did all the work, then act like they did everything. Tell me I'm lying. And then they still have the audacity to have descendants of those slaves on that plantation still working in 2025. Talk about modern day slavery. But again, like I always say, shout out to the ancestors because they never forget the real get back game. Ashe. And since this weekend is Memorial Day weekend, I'm going to let my boy cook and have the last laugh. I'm out.
Oh, now the beezy. I wonder what they're gonna turn it into now. I mean, you can't rebuild a plantation because it ain't gonna be historic no more. So you can't bring it back. So I wonder what it's gonna be now.